Welcome to the Public Speaking Podcast with me, Emma, and I talk about the business of public speaking.
And me, Matt, and I talk about the art of public speaking.
And I'm super excited for our guest today because she's one of my favourite human beings. She is super creative and focused, and she is on a mission to make direct mail sexy again. Charlotte is the founder and CEO of Inkpact and a public speaker. Do you want to introduce yourself, Charlotte?
Oh, what an intro, Emma. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name's Charlotte. I have been running businesses since pretty much I was about 12, 13 years old. So my whole life, pretty much, it feels like. So I guess I'd be your typical serial entrepreneur, love starting businesses, and I absolutely love public speaking. And when I say that at like a dinner party, you kind of split the room like,
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that you love it. Or, oh my God, how can you love it? That's the scariest thing in the world. And so I really do love it. And actually, if I feel like I haven't been on stage for a little while, I haven't filled up my cup in a while. Like it's really like a part of who I am. Everyone asks, you still get nervous? Is it still, easy, that kind of thing? But all I can say is I love it.
What is it you love about it? You're a people person and
Yeah.
you're good with people and, even the brands that you're working with, you're helping people kind of share their message. What is it that fills your cup?
I think because I've had such transformative experiences by watching people on stage, I know the service that it can have to other people. So I was very young when I saw Tony Robbins on stage for the first time. And I saved up all my money to go and see him and at this 3-day conference, and his presence and his knowledge on stage blew me away. I had tears in my eyes watching him. And I remember that whole weekend, it was a UPW thing. It was just so transformational for my life that I was sitting in the seat watching him, or actually I think I was standing dancing around in the seat watching him. And
He does get you moving around.
He does. It's incredible. It's amazing. And I just remember thinking, that is what I'm here to do in the world. And
How old were you then? Sorry.
oh gosh, I was maybe late teens, early 20s. It was about the same time I was at university. And I remember just thinking, this is what I'm here to do. And I didn't mean just from the stand on stage performance. It's help people think differently about things, or really cut through to what matters and be a voice and help people. I guess I didn't necessarily know then. I had started my company Inkpact, but I didn't know exactly what I was going to talk about. But I've loved personal development books since I was 11 years old, I think. So there's always been that part of me that I love sharing stories with people. I love talking to people. I love asking questions of people and then sharing my learning. So I guess that translates really well to be able to share stories and share messages on stage.
So tell us a little bit about Inkpact and the work that you're doing at Inkpact and how your public speaking plays into that.
For the last 12 years, I've been running Inkpact. And I have a love for psychology and a love for humans and human connection and understanding what makes each human feel special and valued and like they're contributing in the world. And I also have a love for brands and the psychology of why brands grow and work. So Inkpact kind of, I guess, fell out of that very accidentally 12 years ago when I was actually still at university. We help companies create real personal moments between that company and the customer that's just bought from them. Because it's going to be really easy to have this very transactional relationship between a person and a company. And it's basically about buying a thing. And actually, it's much more than that. And so initially it was through handwritten notes. So our first product was, for the last 10 years, we've been sending handwritten notes for companies to really thank and appreciate their customer and have this moment of connection that you just can't get digitally. So when we go to let's say we go to a dinner party or a friend has done something for us, we would write a little note, or lots of people would write a little thank you note. To show your gratitude, to show your appreciation.
There's an intention.
Yeah, and I want to tell you I appreciate you. I want to tell you I'm thankful for that act or that thing you did. But when you're a massive company, it's really difficult to show you care about your customers. And so I wanted to be able to help people around the world. So we've got scribes we've got 1,500 scribes who genuinely handwrite every single note card.
That's amazing.
Put it in an envelope, put a stamp on, send it out. And then mothers, artists, retirees, people recovering from illnesses, people who maybe don't or can't do a 9-to-5 job can write in their pajamas at home if they need to. And I love that we can give them an opportunity while at the same time giving brands a voice to say thank you. So we work with lots of brands, like everyone from your kind of John Lewis Waitrose to Net-a-Porter, lots of different retail businesses. And we allow them to thank their customers, but also giving this opportunity to a scribe. So that's where it started. And over the years, it's really evolved into these physical moments are really important in all of our lives. And the more digital the world gets, the more we value these physical moments. And so now Inkpact kind of 2.0, that kind of what we've developed more recently and what we're building into the future, is making physical mail really kind of sexy again, and actually getting brands to see this, creating a moment, whether it's a gift or a coffee table book or a lookbook or a catalogue or a handwritten note, whatever physical thing they can get in the hands of their customer, that's how you're going to create a connection alongside all the digital work they do. So yeah, human beings haven't really essentially fundamentally changed much over the years, and they're not going to, because like core human needs and our fundamental, what we believe in, what we care about, won't change no matter how technical the world gets. And I really want people to understand and see that from a business point of view, but also from a life and personal point of view as well.
That's really interesting. And how does that kind of transpire or translate into the work you do when you're on stage, whether you're coaching or consulting or doing a keynote?
So everything I talk about is around human connection in some way, because we can't exist as a society, as a planet, as people, as anything, a business, anything, without human connection. And so whether I'm going down the lens of how does John Lewis connect with their customers is a very similar way to how I might connect with my husband, or how I could go on a date, or how I'd connect with my best friend, or how I'd connect with different people. The fundamentals are the same, actually, and I love talking about the psychology of that. So whether I'm on a stage doing a very marketing specific human connection talk, or I've done a lot of talks to, I love doing talks to girls' schools, because I wish I'd seen more of people like younger people like me when I was at school starting businesses. So I love doing talks at girls' schools. I'll talk to them about how important it is to understand human connection, but also how important it is to really create their own life as well, and really understand that they have the power to connect with people, they have the power to create their own business, they have the power to do their own career, and how much freedom it gives you when you realise that you can create your own life. So typically my talks always stem back to human connection, human psychology, understanding that is how we're always going to live, but also how important it is to focus on yourself and your own growth as a human, and how important it is to really own your own life entirely, and the difference that can make, and the difference it's had in my life, and the stories and things that I have because of that.
The thing that I really love about what you bring is that complete 100%, this is me, this is my story, and I will go wherever I have to go, even if there's taboos. And, we may touch on some of those taboos, but what I'd be really keen to hear is, was there ever a point where you weren't that version of you when you were speaking? And what happened there? What changed?
Gosh, I think I've step changed. Every few years I get a bit bolder with with what I'm willing to talk about. You mentioned the taboos there. I really believe that, again, back to this human connection thing, being a human being is complicated, it's messy, it's hard, it's difficult. But for some reason, particularly in the UK, there are things we just don't talk about. And I'll very happily talk about all of these all the time, which is we don't ever talk about money, we don't ever talk about death, we don't ever talk about sex. And so when you're a person in this very messy, complicated world, some of the most human things in the world are sex, death, money. And I think running business, I've learned, and just going on my own personal journey, I'm such an inquisitive, I love going on weekend courses around sex and sexuality. I also love going on weekend courses around marketing. I also love to learn about, what makes a great relationship. I will read books about it. I'll also read books about investment. So I like all of these things, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there, as we are all human beings, that like lots of different things. But it felt really inappropriate for me to talk about, let's say, my sexuality journey on a podcast, where it's very easy for me to talk about my marketing journey on a podcast. And I decided a couple of years ago, but particularly in the last 18 months, I am, I've been on leadership podcasts and an entrepreneur podcast. What makes me a leader, what makes me an entrepreneur, is this inquisitive nature for all of those things. Why aren't we talking? Why aren't we talking about death? Why aren't we talking about money? Why aren't we talking about sex, as well as
the
marketing
most very
and growth?
human things in the world, that have all been there.
Yeah.
And connect us all, right?
Yeah,
so actually there's one thing we can all relate to, everyday things. So that's really interesting. And then in terms of your business, are you practicing what you preach there as well? Is that something that, you brought into your communication styles? So you're doing this on stage, you're doing this in your friendships and your relationships. When it comes to business, especially with a lot of people I work with, founders like yourself, people can be a bit nervous about what they put out there, what they say, hold back. And actually that causes a little bit more confusion. Their messaging becomes unaligned. And especially when you're working with other brands and other businesses and you're having to practice what you preach. Do you find that, the bolder you are and the more you move into your own kind of confidence, that this has a bearing on your business relationships?
Oh, like absolutely. From a, I guess the most core business metric is how much you're growing and how much revenue and profit you're generating, right? But about 12 months ago, I decided to step up and be a bit bolder in how I was seeing the future of the business. And I decided to think, actually, yeah, I've got this great business. We've had a lot of traction. We've got a lot of success. But if I want to take it to the absolutely next level, I have to be truly authentic to myself. And I really want to disrupt an industry. Direct mail is not a business that anyone would say is sexy. And the whole point of trying to transform that direct mail industry into one that these big brands and these big e-commerce companies find sexy had to take someone who I believed was me and I believe is me, like wearing the leather jacket and wearing the heels on stage and going, you know what, the future is still physical mail, and there's a lot of old traditional print companies that I'm therefore battling against, and I'm standing on stage and having to really boldly say that's the old way, that's not the future. And I think the future is this amazing connected world where digital inspires physical, and actually the future can be physical, and handwritten notes are not outdated, and these things are not outdated, they're actually the future, and this is why. But to do that, I had to become the leader and the entrepreneur and the person that was willing to be provocative and different and stand on stage and go, yeah, I'm going to make direct mail sexy again, and I'm the person who's going to do that. And that gave me the confidence to definitely wear my heels and my leather jacket on stage. And they weren't expecting me to kind of come on and be, I'm a very energetic, passionate person, and I could be that. I didn't have to dull that down when you're talking like that. So we've got a new branding literally in the business recently, and it's provocative and it's different, and it looks different and it feels different, and that's because we're trying to disrupt an industry. We need to, and it's best for business to do that. And actually in the last quarter we've generated more revenue than the entirety of last year by authentically being us.
That's
incredible. And I enjoy it more, and it's more exciting, and the talks are more exciting. So I think from a happiness satisfaction level, being provocative is meant I'm fully alive and fully me, I'm happier, and the business is significantly better. So yeah.
So that's really interesting. In the work that you're doing in showing up as yourself, for your business, you're able to then replicate that for the brands that you work with and help them do that. I guess it's very similar in the work that you do, Matt, with speakers that come to you and they want to build these personas and these brands into a talk or into a public speaking opportunity. And what's also interesting is you've touched on a few different ways in which public speaking, I think a lot of people think it has to be that keynote stage, the Tony Robinson stage, that's public speaking. But a lot of people do it. It's not.
No.
Matt, talk us through that.
My definition of public speaking in the world that we all see it in the worlds that I operate with my clients is any space in which you have to speak in front of other people where you either don't feel yourself or you feel under pressure, and yes, that could be a Tony Robbins stage, but that could also be standing up in a boardroom. That could be delivering a pitch. That could be suddenly being thrust into a new job, thinking you have to be a certain way just to talk about a project in front of your team members. And what I really liked about what you said there, because I really hear the thread of authenticity just kind of streaming through everything, which is beautiful, and for a lot of people who come to me for work, and for a lot of people who'll be listening to this, they're going to be asking the question, right, how do I get there? How do I do this thing where I can really just drop my guard and be myself and not get caught up in the fears that I have inside myself? Because when those fears start coming out, then of course that's when you get muddled words, a poor performance, holding back what you want to say, etc., etc. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like. So I guess the question I've got for you is, let's bring this to the more professional kind of speaking places. So let's say it's marketing presentations or kind of standing up for your business, those kind of things. Is there a hack or a trick or a strategy that you use to make sure that when you're in that space, you're still bringing the Charlotte that you said would show up to, to your family or your friends or these other areas that you operate in?
Yeah, I did some amazing work with a coach. I'd recommend everyone has a coach. I'm talking about a life coach in this instance, but a life coach, a speaking coach. I think you need someone to be able to hold you accountable for you showing up in your authentic way, because when you get stuck in your head, that's the hardest part. So I did a lot of work with a coach on getting my most, and her company is called Electric Woman. It's all about getting your most electric self, is your most the most confident version of yourself to show up in different situations where actually in that moment you feel like squashing them down. You kind of practice bringing them out. And so I've done some visualization work around what my most electric, self-expressed version of me is. So before I go on stage, I make sure I tap into that energy rather than letting the fearful, nervous energy squash that down, if that makes sense. So I'll literally go into a toilet, I'll put some headphones on, I'll pick a song that resembles my most electric self.
What song's that?
So it's by a band called Hailstorm. So I'm a big rock fan.
Cool.
And I know Emma is too. It's by Hailstorm, and it's just this like powerful female singer with a rock, and this incredible rock band, and it's just so like grr and like unapologetic in the music that it reminds me to be unapologetic in myself. So I'm there and I'm in a toilet. I do a bit of the Amy Cuddy like body language, like getting myself in a good state. I listen to some music and I just remember who I am at my core essence of a self that's not letting that fear. Because I've spoken on a lot of stages over the years and I still get incredibly nervous, and I probably always will.
What fears do you have?
Mainly that no one's going to like what I'm saying. Is it any use anyway? Like, what are they going to get from it? I have less fears around stumbling now. The more I do it, the better I am at just trusting when I'm present, I can do it. But the fears are around, they're not going to like the content, or are they going to get anything from it? Or are they going to find this useful? Or who do I think I am being able to talk about this on stage? Like those kind of imposter syndrome stuff. It used to be more around, am I going to trip over, fall over, or, and actually or stumble over words. But the more I have stumbled
I'm sure you've
over
had
words,
those moments.
and it's
all
all
done
fine.
And
And
as
I
you
have actually
recover,
physically fallen.
yeah.
Well, not quite. I've tripped up as well, and it's all fine. You just kind of style it out. So now I guess I trust more in the physical stuff.
Yeah.
But it's actually in the who am I good enough stuff that comes up. So yeah, I bring up my Electric Woman. I'm listening to her, and then I go on stage in that state, and I feel like then I haven't let the fears squash me down. I'm a bit more open and I just kind of go with it. So yeah, I think creating a moment before you go on stage to remember who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, it allows me to turn up as the fully expressed Charlotte.
I think that's really nice as well. And for the audience, if you're right up to that moment, making sure that at the core of it is, I want someone to be able to take something from this. And again, it goes back to that experience you had when you were younger of like, wow, like I've learned something, I've taken something away. And in the work that you do, Matt, with your clients and speakers, whether it's the kind of first time that they've spoken or whether they're preparing for a particular high stakes talk, does that get easier? Or is it, say people are in a point of transition, maybe they're introducing a new talk or a new version of themselves or a new keynote. Does it get easier, or is that something that has to continually be practiced and be conscious of? And, is one of those things where you just feel like I've nailed it, I can always do this? Or is it something that has to be continually honed?
There's no one fits all answer. I think there's certain elements for me, like public speaking is like any activity that you wish to become comfortable in, and it's about developing like what I call patterns. Okay, familiarity. Once you start having familiarity in patterns, your nervous system feels safe because it recognizes it, and then that pattern starts to embed, a bit like habits and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. Once you hone, let's say, one presentation or one message, and you've done it many times, of course, you've got a pattern around that will become easier. And then if you transition into something completely different, you're going to have to do some new pattern work. And I really like what you said about like having my kind of Electric Woman, because the language I use is blueprint. It's like, okay, before we do anything, what does this incredible version of you look like, and how do you want to think, feel, and act? And that's what we've got to figure out, what it looks like, and learn how to step into it consciously. And I think that can also change. I don't know what your experience is that, but I find if I work with clients, like they go one-to-one with me for a few months and we have one blueprint, and they might then come to an intensive with me a year later, they revisit that whole process and come up with a new version of who they are based in their life. Do you find that has happened with you as you've gone through your stages?
Yeah. So
has the Electric Woman changed?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's very different at different stages. And I'm a very visual person. And years ago, when I first did the exercise, she was quite like almost like floaty on a beach and very like serene. And as the years have gone on, like my Electric Woman now is always wearing like a leather jacket, and like she's a bit more she's more feisty as I've got older, and matches stages of life, but also matches what I'm trying to do in life. I'm kind of fighting for a bit more now, and I'm different. And so, she's always dressed in black, as I'm now always dressed in black pretty much my whole life. So it resembles those seasons that we have of our life. And yeah, if I look back 5 years ago, she's very different than she is today. But the Charlotte 5 years ago couldn't do what I'm doing today, and vice versa. So it's just an evolution.
Same in business, right? So as your business grows and changes and has different needs, and you have different teams, different levels of complexity, and it's same for speakers in building their business and adding new things or taking things away. You have to change and you have to grow. You also have to be responsive to what's going on in the wider environment. You can't rest on your laurels and say, well, I've nailed this now and this is going to be the same in 5 years' time. The world is going to change. People are going to need a new message, or a more grown-up message, or a more powerful message, a more confident message. And that will also vary from industry to industry and peer to peer, and depending on who you're speaking to. So what I guess my last question for you, Charlotte, is in terms of this kind of this cycle and making sure that you have your relevance and your confidence, is that something that you see will continue to grow and that you're going to continue to work on? Or how do you see public speaking playing into the future of your business and your personal?
I guess we'll go through points where like expansive or contractive based on what's happening in your life. I'm like, this year I will happily go on nearly any stage, do any podcast. I'm really wanting to get my voice out there and get my thoughts out there, and I just want to be really human about what's going on in the world, in my life, in business. And I just think I'm not seeing enough really open, transparent, like business leaders. I'm not seeing enough of them. I'm also still not seeing enough women on stages and podcasts. If you look at the top 10 podcasts in the world, I think there's maybe one woman on there. In the UK, I know that in the business podcast, there's one woman out of 10, and there's just not enough. And I just think that, we've come a long way, but there's a lot of work to do, and
it still needs leveling a little bit.
Yeah, and if I can be one of those voices, and particularly I run a tech business that also is in direct mail, not two of the industries you'd think there are many female leaders, and there are getting more, and I love that there are more, but there still aren't enough. So I think my mission is to be on as many stages and put myself out of my comfort zone and talk about things that I haven't talked about before, that are a bit more risky and a bit different, and see what happens.
That's awesome. And was that always part of the plan, or is that something that you'd feel compelled to do now?
Yeah, no, it was not part of the plan. A year ago, lots of things happened in my life in very quick succession. Some of the topics I'll talk about now, like death and money and sexuality and all of that, came because a part of my life, a bit of a control freak. I'm a bit of a type A personality, and very quickly,
are you?
Yeah, very much so. I am. There's some things in life that you can't control, and very quickly, like I just had a baby, and there were some challenges with a client paid us late, and we had some money issues, and we had some team issues, and there was like this legal issue that came up, and then very sadly my stepkid's mother passed away very quickly, and then my grandma passed away, and then it was literally like this happened. All of the stuff I could not control, no matter how great at a type A personality. And when something like that happens, and we've all got examples of this in our life, when things start falling down around you in lots of ways, and I felt like I kind of described like life is on fire right now, it was really hard. Through that comes a version of yourself which is stronger, more resilient, and looks at life very differently. So when all this stuff was happening to me, I had crazy hormones. I think my baby was 4 weeks old. All this stuff was happening. In those moments, I remembered something that an investor had really helped me with a few years before. I had a difficult time before, and he was like, always remember who you are. And I remember sending him this email, and I'm going to swear, is that okay? Where I said, I'm Charlotte fucking Pearce. And literally, I had to channel that energy in this moment where, I've got kids and they're grieving and the business is like in a difficult place and I'm all over the place. And I just had to go in and go, I'm Charlotte fucking Pearce. What do I want? And particularly in Zoe's death and Zoe dying, I said, I'm going to let an old version of me die too with this whole thing. And actually, that's what Zoe would have wanted. And she died very young. And it just thought, gosh, that could be me. I could die at,
It's that transition again, isn't
so
it? Yeah.
those things happened, and
Humanizing.
therefore, I refuse to be a percentage of myself. I want to be 100% authentically me. And so sometimes, I wish it didn't take a moment like that in our life to sometimes step up, but it often does. And so when I was going through that moment, I was like, no, I'm going to create my business the way I want to do it. And I'm going to be powerful through this difficult situation. I'm going to teach the kids what it's like to really go after your dreams and what you want. And I'm going to stand on those stages and talk about difficult topics. I'm going to talk about death more and money more and sexuality more. And so in that moment, I just made a choice. And I really actually hope in the future that I have other moments that remind me of that. And I keep evolving. And I think life is a bit like a game in lots of ways. And when you feel like you've leveled up.
Yeah.
I feel like I've leveled up. And I really hope in the future, in fact, I know really, there's going to be other levels. And so I kind of just trust in that. So with the level up of my life, I'm leveling up the speaking, leveling up the business. I know in the future there's going to be another level and another level. And I just want to make sure I'm consciously choosing those levels every time. So hopefully this is actually quite a mid to low level, and there's going to be many more levels coming. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
I think that's one of the cool things about, use the word cool gently there, about when these big events come that then bring about us having to make a change. On reflection, I find that those spaces are the ones that kind of show us that actually we have got the power within us to do these things. And sometimes, it's kind of thrust upon us, but then other times we realize, well, if we can do that in the face of all this adversity, or to bring it back to, public speaking more specifically, if I can get up, when this time I was forced to, if I can actually get up and do that here and come out of this okay and be told that worked, then what would happen if actually I put my own motivation behind that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And gave it a go.
And trusting we can do hard things, whether that's standing on a stage that you are nervous to be on, or talking in front of people, or that pitch, or that investor or board meeting. We can do hard things. And actually, the more we do hard things, the more we realize we can do hard things. And so now
inspire other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm almost excited when I know I'm really scared about something, because it means I know on the other side. I think Brené Brown talks about, it's because we're feeling vulnerable. And I really believe, I'm now learning, I'm still not great at this, to embrace the vulnerability, because on the other side of it is courage, and on the other side of it is something great. So every time I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, I'm so scared, I'm about to do something, I know it's because I'm about to do something big. And that is actually now exciting. But yeah, I think we can all do hard things. And I encourage everyone to do hard things. And actually, standing on stages, whether it's a small stage or a big stage, almost doesn't matter. It's the fact you did something you were scared or is vulnerable to do. And I encourage everyone to do that in any way they can, as often as they can, because it builds a muscle, I think. And building that muscle of doing hard things, we keep leveling up regularly.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of good stuff, and I think we're drawing things to a close a little bit now. The thing that really stood out for me, that I think everyone listening and watching can pick, is this idea of actually practically excavating what's the best version of you look like.
Yeah.
And then trying that out, putting that into action.
And being able to tap into that version of you somehow. I think music is a really good way. The other way is how you dress also helps sometimes, getting into a character.
Yeah, if you feel good, if you don't feel good about yourself.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. If you're not feeling good, what's going to make you feel good? And then for me, I have there's a really sweet story about my dad at my wedding. He knows that I use jewelry as a bit of an armor as well. So all of my electric women have quite a lot of jewelry on, literally almost warrior-like jewelry. And he had this made for me and engraved it to remember who you are. And it's like a little armor bracelet. And I just think for me, the jewelry can get me back into myself. Everyone will have their own version of that.
Yeah.
That they
what's the thing that roots you back to yourself?
It brings you back. Sometimes it's tattoos, sometimes it's your clothes. It's normally something physical. So yeah, maybe have a think about what that is for you. How can you get into your best version of yourself before you do anything public speaking wise?
Well, thank you, Charlotte. And if anybody wants to find you, where can we point them?
So my company's called Inkpact, if you're into anything to do with physical mail, but LinkedIn is the best place to find me personally. Please reach out.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll see you for our next episode. And thank you for joining us today. It's been brilliant. Really great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.